Good afternoon. This is the 1907 diary series, and it's a lovely afternoon here in the Portland area in October, and it's also a lovely afternoon and evening in the Crimea in September, on the 24th of September, 1907. Okay, so we are divided in time, but not in atmosphere, you could say. This is the second half and the concluding half of the long diary entry of the 24th. It was a Monday, and let's dive in. If the sun doesn't prevent us. That's a little better. All right. The road was very good, except that in the end, closer to the gorge, it was so steep and so close to the abyss that Miss June didn't want to let Maria ride on horseback, and without even saying a word, she had the horses led away, which of course offended Maria, who hates walking, especially in the heat. It's a wonderful place, truly. A huge gorge which has lots of water in the spring, and then there are the differently colored plants which make a marvelous impression. An assistant forester, some official, showed us everything there. Then he treated us to milk and tea. We had tea at the hotel, and it was completely dark by the time we got home. On our way back, we saw a grandiose spectacle, to wit, how the forest is burning in Alupka, i.e. up above, on Krestovskaya mountain. That was a marvelously beautiful picture, truly, and it's still burning. I can see it from my balcony. When we got back, I didn't do anything in particular before dinner, and after dinner I played cards with GM. Maybe Aunt Minnie will invite us to come over tomorrow. I hope so. 10 o'clock. Okay, I forgot to say, in case you are coming to this video without having seen the previous one, that this is an outing that Dmitri and Maria took on horseback with George Mikhailovich Laming and Miss Junkovskaya, two of the members of their household who were in charge of them. So Laming was supervising both Dmitri and Maria, and Miss June was more focused on Maria, but she also had a hand in raising Dmitri. Okay, so I did a little research, very little unfortunately, but enough to find out that this, which Dmitri refers to only as the forest, was actually Kush Gorge. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. It belongs to the Tatar language, and it is a national park. And I believe that it was probably at that time as well, because they are being guided, apparently, by a forester. Dmitri calls him an assistant forester and then adds some official. So somebody who was officially employed and had an official role as a forester. And he showed us everything, Dmitri says, and then treated us to milk and tea. This was not a picnic, apparently, because Dmitri usually mentions food, but in this instance he only mentions the milk and tea. They'd had lunch before they made the excursion, and he says it took 2 hours to get there, but that just can't be the case. Either I misunderstood what he wrote, although it seems very clear, or else he miswrote, one or the other. So what does he have to say about this? Well, when the path becomes very narrow, the bridle path or the hiking path becomes very narrow and is right on the edge of the drop-off into the gorge, Miss June doesn't want Maria to ride anymore. Well, I think I'm on Miss June's side, and I think it was more than Maria, because she gives the order for the horses to be led away. Apparently they'd stopped for a break or to enjoy the view wherever they were at, and she gives this order without telling anyone for the horses to be led away, so that when the journey is resumed to the top, they have to walk. Apparently not just Maria, although it could be that when Dmitri says horses in the plural, he means Miss June's horse and Maria's horse. And maybe Miss June wasn't wild about riding on this steep and narrow path either, with the abyss, as Dmitri calls it, just off to one side. And, you know, I think she's right. I mean, horses can be a little capricious from time to time, or see a snake or something. And what could she possibly tell Aunt Ella and Grand Duke Paul if Maria were to fall into the abyss and be killed? That would not be good. So it was, I think, a reasonable precaution, though it made poor Maria offended and mad. She hates to walk, especially in the heat. Well, then what I didn't mention in the first read-through, what I excluded, was this comment that Dmitri makes, the Amazonka, so in the Amazon. So what is he talking about there? Maria hates walking, especially in the heat, even in the Amazon. What the heck does he mean by that? They're not in the Amazon. So Amazonka, it's the same word for an Amazon, for one of the warrior women from Greek mythology. It's the same word for the Amazon River. So I'm not sure why he threw that in. If any of you can enlighten me, do let me know. That would be interesting. So part of this trip, a part that Dmitri seems to enjoy even more than the journey to their own destination at Kush, is to have this view of this forest fire burning in Alupka, or he qualifies that it's actually up above Alupka on Krestovskaya mountain. So I had a look at that too. And yeah, there's some old ruins up there of a fortress. Alupka is, you know, this nice little, one of the nice little resort towns on the Black Sea. And there's a palace there, the Vorontsov Palace, and the town isn't burning, and there's quite a sheer rock face for this Krestovskaya mountain. And so, yeah, people weren't worried, apparently, that the forest fire was going to spread. But I would think that the air quality wouldn't have been very good. And here Dmitri is, you know, here they are outdoors, and then he's standing on his balcony watching this forest fire. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that it was actually under control. And actually not just giving him the benefit of the doubt, because in the next diary entry he's also going to talk about going and viewing the destruction caused by the forest fire. So, you know, I come from a part of the world where our weather situation is really pretty ideal. Not too hot in summer, not too cold in winter, and we don't have tornadoes, we don't have hurricanes, we don't have all these other things that make other parts of the United States so precarious. We don't have the same level of earthquake problems that they have further south in California, although there is an earthquake risk here. And we don't have, we just don't tend to have weather disasters. We have volcanoes, but the last time that was a problem was back in the 1980s when I was a kid, and Mount St. Helens blew. And so one thing we have is forest fires. We have massive forest fires sometimes, and I have young cousins who, well, it's a generational thing. Also cousins who are my age and their children who are who fight specifically forest fires during the forest fire season. And it's, you know, it's hard and dangerous work, and it's serious business. And so it's hard for me to kind of wrap my head around this idea of a forest fire being something that is fun to look at. But I do understand where he's coming from. He doesn't have the same the same exposure to disastrous forest fires that we have here. Overall, it really, you know, I mean, I'm just talking now. This isn't really historical, but overall, it really reminds me, both from the pictures I saw online and from Dmitri's description of the Columbia River Gorge, where I spent a lot of time as a child, and it makes me think very much of that. So they go back. They have tea at the Hotel Rosia. That is, we've already had lunch there, and then when they get home, he just loafs around a little and has dinner, and then plays cards with GM. And it's interesting that he's really hoping that Aunt Minnie will invite them to her rocks the next day, because usually that puts him under so much stress, as you know. But GM doesn't seem to mind when they just go to her rocks and spend the day there. So it's not a picnic, it's not an outing to Yalta. So you know, that's fine, and that's nice that he wants to spend time with his aunt and uncle and cousins at her rocks. And you know, it's one of his last chances to do that, because they'll be leaving on the 29th. So in the next diary entry, we'll be talking a little more about the forest fire and getting up close, and we'll be talking about the beginning of the plans to return to Moscow and how they're going to carry that out. But because apparently they need to go from Yalta to Sebastopol, and one option for doing that is by travel on water on the Black Sea. So that's going to take some arrangement for a young Grand Duke and Grand Duchess, who are not just going to go down to the harbor or the dock and buy tickets for the next ferry. Yeah, so I can also give you a bit of a preview now about what's coming up in October, because I read through to the end, and boy, you know, Dmitri is going to be returning to his autumn routine of classes and that sort of thing, but we're going to have Maria's fiance, and we're going to have some very interesting revelations about how Dmitri and Maria feel and what their relationship is like, particularly Dmitri's, with both Laming and Aunt Ella, and things that he hasn't gone into detail about so much before. So I found that fascinating, and I hope you'll continue to watch the series. And you know, at some point, at any point, send me your comments. You know, I express a lot of my own opinion about these things, and I'd love to hear what you think about our friend or any of the people he talks about. Here I almost forgot. This is the only horse I had when I was a child. It's a little British Army horse. You can see it has a rifle, and on the other side it has it has a scabbard for a sword, and then this looks like it's maybe to hold a rifle. So yeah, I am not a good horseback rider. I would not have attempted the gorge. All right, I will see you next time. Bye.